Hi, Seema.
Hello,
How
how
are
are
you?
you?
I'm awesome. Thank you. How are you?
Doing well.
Very good. All right, so we got a bunch of people joining in here. Hi, everybody. Um, all right, so let's get started. Thank you all for coming to watch The Art of Mindful Medicine. This is episode 8. I am Dr. Seth Gilson, biological dentist, certified yoga teacher, speaker, and coach. And my very special guest today is Dr. Seema Desai. So I'm going to give you a quick little rundown of an intro for Seema. Dr. Seema Desai graduated from Midwestern State University with a bachelor's degree in science, a degree in biology, and a minor in chemistry. She received her dental degree in 2008 from the University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio. Seema wears a lot of hats, she says. She's a wife, a mom of two, a dentist, and now a blogger, just to name a few. Some of Seema's passions are yoga, mindfulness, and eco-conscious living, which I love, all three of those. She says it has become her personal mission to raise a generation of mindful future leaders to bring mindfulness to medicine and to help everyone live with kindness for themselves, each other, and the planet. So that's
Great.
beautiful. And Seema, thank you very much for coming on. You can, if you want to say hi to everybody.
Hi guys. How's it going? Yes, thank you so much for having me on. I've been looking forward to this.
Yes, it's my pleasure. Um, all right. So, as always, let's start with gratitude. So, if you could please let us know 3 things that you are grateful for today.
One is my family. I know that seems like a pretty common one, but growing up for me, I'm an only child.
Hmm.
And my parents are, my childhood was fine. It wasn't, but it was just kind of lonely and quiet. Um, and when I met my husband, his family is huge and just
Hmm.
so full of life, and all of his cousins are really close to one another. And so it's been amazing being married into this family
Hmm.
for years now, and really getting to have that brother sister
Hmm.
relationship that I never had as a kid. So, and I'm certainly grateful for my side of the family as well. But without this other side, I don't think I could have experienced family craziness the way that I'm getting to now.
I
So
can understand that.
yeah, definitely my family. The second thing I'm really grateful for is I'm actually grateful that I would able was it's not something I would wish on anyone necessarily, but I had postpartum depression
Hmm.
with my first child. And now that I'm through it and on the other side, I'm really grateful for that experience
Beautiful.
because it's, made me who I am. So grateful for having been challenged to grow stronger through that.
Hmm.
Um, and thirdly, I'm grateful for my mindfulness practice
Beautiful.
because I feel like it's been able to really up the ante as far as what I is possible for one person to do. So
Absolutely. I mean, and the second one, I don't think there's anything. I know you said you wouldn't wish that upon anybody, but it made you into who you are today, and it
yeah,
made the third thing you're grateful for possible for you. So
right,
that's
exactly.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
So I mean, we all go through our challenges and trials and tribulations, and
yeah,
that was just your journey. And we're definitely gonna, if you're wanting to, we'll definitely get into that a little bit more.
yeah.
But I definitely want to start with you telling us a little bit about you, your family, personal story, growing up, where you and your family are from, things like that.
Okay. Well, I was actually born in this tiny town, Wichita Falls, Texas.
Okay.
It is really close to the Oklahoma border, and back, years ago, it was not a town that was really all that diverse. Um, so it presented its own challenges
Mm-hmm.
and its own, I guess, it threw the gauntlet down in very many ways. Um, I stayed at home for college and then got out of there as fast as I could. I needed to spread my wings, and yeah, I went to dental school. I met my husband in I was still in college. He was in med school, and we dated for 5 years, long distance. Got married
Mm-hmm.
right after dental school, and just interestingly enough, just had the white, the house with the white picket fence,
Mm-hmm.
and had kids. Growing up again, like I said before, was a little bit lonely. I actually grew up in, uh, I guess I'd say neither of my parents, they're blue collar workers.
Mm-hmm.
But we grew up around people that were physicians and in healthcare. And
Mm-hmm.
so that definitely impacted, uh, my mindset and what I wanted to do. And, was trying to find the balance between working all the time, as I saw my parents' friends do, you know, versus finding something else to do that maybe, I don't know. It was never, never was it spoken to me about going out and finding your passion
Mm-hmm.
or, doing what really resonates with you as your higher purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of like, and I get it, coming from somebody that from a background that was financially challenged, you got to do something that's going to put food on the table.
I understand.
So that was an experience for sure. But yeah, pretty normal childhood other than that.
Where are your parents from?
My parents are from India, so
Okay.
they immigrated to the U.S. in 1982
Okay.
to New Jersey, and then they moved to Texas because my dad had family in Wichita Falls, and so he just went somewhere where there was family and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't so cold.
Yeah,
So
I don't blame him for that. So,
yeah.
yeah, no, I have not. I have heard of Wichita Falls, but I have not been there. So,
Yeah, I get a lot of oh, Kansas, and you're like, no, not Wichita, Wichita Falls. So yeah.
great. And so I know you said you had a little bit of a lonely childhood, being an only child and things like that. And you said it was a small town.
Yeah, I mean it's not small. Like I live in a suburb and it's 100,000 people
Uh huh.
thereabouts, and that's how big Wichita Falls is. It's just the fact that it's geographically kind of remote. Like it takes 2 hours to get to Dallas, 2 hours to get to Oklahoma City,
Mm-hmm.
and so you're just kind of in the middle of nowhere by that regard.
Yeah.
I think it's better now. I honestly haven't been back enough, but like to really fairly say one way or another. But growing up, it was um, not as diverse as I would like it to be.
No, I can understand. I mean, also as a kid, it's like, I mean, you have to rely on other people to get around too.
Yeah,
So, I
yeah.
mean,
Well,
you
and it
can't
was,
just.
yeah. I mean, I definitely got bullied for religion. For
Mm-hmm.
I would get called like that foreign girl, even though I was born in the same
Mm-hmm.
town
Mm-hmm.
as a lot of these people. Um, and my family was different, right? Like we're this immigrant family, and we're culturally different.
Mm-hmm.
So it was
Very
just so
different.
new to a lot of people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
culture. I mean, not so much for. I mean, for you, but I mean for your parents, that cultural difference is. I mean, that's from my understanding vastly different. So.
it's vastly different. And then, I mean, also too, it's not only vastly different, but I'm their only child and I'm a girl.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent a
That's true.
lot of time, being told no because I'm a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of for a long time accepted it as like, okay, I can't because I don't have a penis,
Yeah.
and that's just kind of how things are.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it took a long time for my parents to really accept and trust. And this is not knocking my parents. I can't imagine picking up my entire life,
Mm-hmm.
moving, and they moved not in the days of the internet. I mean, this
Yeah.
was, like I remember them when they would call home and they would scream into the phone because the connection was so terrible, right?
Wow.
Just screaming their heads off to try and get what they were saying across. And they
Mm-hmm.
would write, letters that would take a month to get to and from. And so yes, it is our culture very much.
Yeah.
Sorry, I took my glasses off because I felt like there was a lot of blue light being reflected back on the image, and
Don't
so
worry about it.
if I don't respond to something,
It's all good. Hey, I'll
yeah.
I'll read the questions for you if
Okay,
there's any questions, things. And that, speaking of which, once we get into this a little bit more, everybody, and when you do have questions, feel free to write them in. I'm going to write them down, and at the end, if we have time, we're either going to do a Q&A, or what I'm going to do is end this live video like I did last week and just restart a new one just a couple minutes afterward, and then we'll do maybe 10 or 15 minute Q&A or discuss something that anybody is really interested in discussing.
right.
So keep moving along. So childhood, was there anything that you ever really wanted to be when you grew up?
So my mom uncovered this, like she was cleaning out the house and she found this piece of paper that I had written when I was 7, and it was, I want to be a doctor when I
Wow.
grow up. And I
Okay.
think it was partially just because I didn't know what else you could be, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know I didn't want to be a mechanic like my dad because that seemed really, challenging
Uh-huh.
in a way that, not challenging in a good way. And so, and nothing against, auto workers. I don't mean that at
Well,
all. I just saw
no,
him
I
struggle.
yeah, and especially coming like I mean, you just a few of the cultural differences you said, and some of like I'm sure there was a good amount of discrimination, unfortunately, in
Yes.
that time. So,
Yeah.
and mechanics, I mean, I get it. I mean, I totally understand.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, again, this is not really to knock any profession. And,
Yeah,
and
no,
that's
not at
kind of
all.
what I was getting at before I stopped was, I can't imagine picking up my whole life and moving here and English being your second language. And they spoke English before they came, but
That was
our
probably helpful.
race here is different. Yeah, no, but our culture, here is different, and the way we live is different.
Hmm.
And, just trying to really assimilate, but then, I definitely felt that pull back and forth. Like, they didn't really teach me about a lot of the cultural holidays like Diwali or Holi or any of that stuff. I learned as an adult because
Hmm.
I want to. Um,
Which I'm
but
sure
then,
that
like, I
made them
remember,
happy.
yeah, they've said things here and there, but I think they just don't know what to do with it, really. Because I honestly think it's been so long.
Uh-huh.
Truly, I think it's been so long for them that they've forgotten. So now, when you ask about stuff, it's very like, oh, well, we used to do this, but I don't remember. It's my dad's like
Yeah, of course.
close to 75,
Yeah, I
right? So he
mean,
doesn't.
I get it. The details in his
Yeah.
20s are not too detailed anymore. So,
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So yeah. So definitely that push and pull. Like, they wouldn't really teach me about that stuff because they didn't want me. They wanted me to assimilate. They were just doing their best.
hmm.
But then on the other hand, I remember being told, like, girls your age in India would already be married off and be running the house. Like, how come you can't cook or clean, or like what? It was a lot of. So when I talk about a lonely childhood, it was a lot of like, I don't know where I'm supposed to be.
Hmm.
Where do I fit in relation to my peers or relation to my family? Um, I wanted to make my parents happy with expectations, but I was really unhappy
Hmm.
the entire time. Um, and it wasn't until I met my husband that I got this like breath of fresh air.
Wow.
And he was very much like therapy for me in that um, we had a really toxic relationship when we first started out, just because I didn't know how to be with
Hmm.
someone and have a healthy line of communication because my parents didn't model that for me.
Hmm.
And so it was interesting for sure. We grew up together a lot, but a lot of it was because he was willing to stick around and like help me
That's
through
beautiful.
my own issues. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome. That's amazing that to find somebody like that. I mean, pretty quickly after I guess moving out of the house and things. So
yeah,
and
yeah,
not going through like 10, 20 people to get there.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
very fortunate, it seems. So,
yeah.
um, and I know you said you grew up with a lot of people that were in medicine, but was there anything that really inspired you to get into the health and medical field?
Um, Honestly, brutally honestly,
Hmm.
not. I think the whole idea of helping people, yeah. And it was really the only thing I knew.
Hmm.
Um, so I did it, and I'm glad I did. Um, but there wasn't any like one defining moment where I was like, yes, this is what I was meant to do.
Hmm.
I just
I
kind
get
of
it.
wound up there, and it's I was never, as a result, because I think I wasn't really drawn to it the way a lot of people are.
Hmm.
Um, you know, Dental school was, I didn't. I know no one really enjoys going through the ringer, right? Like, let's be fair. But I never like geeked out about stuff. I was like, all right, I'll learn it because this is what you got to learn to be
Yeah.
a doctor, right?
Hmm.
So I learned it. And then my relationship with it was just kind of, well, I'm going to stop when I have kids because I want to, and that was always the case. I wanted to be there for them and not have to, I didn't want to be in a position where I would have to juggle that.
Hmm.
So that's how we made life choices, was according to that goal that we both shared.
Okay.
So with each kid, I stayed at home 2 years each. That's because that's just the longest that the state of Texas allows without going to practice, like going through extra hoops to
Gotcha.
maintain your license, right?
Okay.
So, and then after that, I went back part-time just because I wanted to make sure that I was there for the kids too. So
Yeah, of course.
yeah.
No, that's great. And what influenced you to get into dentistry?
Excuse me. I think that I really like procedure-based things.
Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely something. I also felt like dentistry compared to other other types of doctors, like medical doctors, it's just a guaranteed better work-life balance
Mm-hmm. I
in that there's
completely
not the
agree with you.
weekend calls and things like that. And of course, if you choose to do so, great. But it was honestly just something that I thought was going to be able to offer me that ability to be wife, mom, doctor without then being constantly on call or, just running around like a chicken with my head cut off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, ways I think he offered more flexibility, but uh, at that time, that's what I picked dentistry.
It's breaking up a little bit, but you there?
Mm,
Oh,
yeah, I'm
now it's
here.
fine. Okay,
Good.
cool.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I could hear you, but like the screen just
Oh, the
froze a little
screen.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I could hear you. I agree with you. I mean, I had a very similar experience and thought process going through it that about constantly being on call and going through rotations and rounds and things like that in the hospital.
Right.
And being more hands-on and direct with patients was something that I really liked because I played soccer my whole life. I was a goalie. Using my hands, so like I was
Yeah.
constantly. I like being hands-on, so
Right.
totally
Right.
makes sense to me. Um, so while you were on the journey in school, and like you said, and I completely agree. I don't really know of anybody that like loved going to dental school and going through.
Right.
I call it like a hazing process, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
And I think I actually heard one of the
Definitely.
professors say that, which I was like, okay, so let's just keep moving along
That's
here.
cool. Yeah.
What is the one of the most significant challenges you had to overcome while you were on that journey in school?
Oh gosh. I really that's a tough one. Simply because I feel like 5 years ago I would have been able to pop that answer off really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my mindset's changed a lot since then. So I feel like that's more of a difficult question to answer. I know
Mm-hmm.
that for most of us, like going through the first 2 years is hard because it's so much book learning
Mm-hmm.
and all that stuff. The second 2 years, you do have more free time,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's you get to once you finally get to clinic and you're finally like the BMOC there, it's nice to have that time. But then I felt like one of the biggest challenges for me was I didn't feel inspired to actually practice real world dentistry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of our attendings have come from a military background, or they did come from a military
Oh,
background.
okay.
And so the way the military practices dentistry is very different than real world
Uh-huh.
dentistry. And, a lot of it was just very, very detail oriented in ways that don't necessarily prepare you for going out and then seeing a real life patient in the real world where production matters.
Uh-huh.
And it is a balance, right? It's a balance of no amount of money should trump patient care
100%.
at all. However, there is something to be said for being efficient and
Mm-hmm.
understanding how to manage your time.
Yeah.
So I think that was definitely something that maybe could have been worked on better.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and is there anything that specifically that helped to motivate you throughout the process?
Getting done. Just want out,
The
man.
light at the end of the tunnel. I understand.
Uh,
Um, all right. So now shifting a little bit away from dentistry and to overall health, what is your personal views on health of the people in overall in the United States, and how has that changed since you actually became a dentist? Your views on that?
yeah, I think it's unfortunate, really, where we stand as mankind, particularly where we are as a country, for a lot of reasons, but specific to health too. It's I mean, you and I were talking about this a little bit when we spoke a few days ago about how the American diet just isn't what it needs to be for a human body to sustain life
Mm-hmm.
the way we are meant to live it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think our culture has turned to this, quick fix, now, and it doesn't, there is no, it's a very mindless culture,
Mm-hmm.
which I think impacts everything. It impacts our health, it impacts physical health, emotional health,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
the
100%.
health of our planet, the health of our relationships, everything.
Yeah.
And so it's always a shocker for me to, because especially now during quarantine, we're all in our little bubbles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we make these choices. Not everyone's thinking about the same choices everyone else is. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you go and you hear about like, oh, well, this is how they do things in this house versus when you go back into your bubble, it's interesting what varying degrees of choices people make. So
Yeah. I mean, it really is. And I've had a bunch of discussions with patients on my own with this about what they choose to eat.
yeah,
And a lot of the problems that I've noticed that people have are financially driven,
right,
but a lot of people aren't. And in my experience, and I use this analogy all the time, a lot of people pay attention more to the type of gas they put in the car than the food they put in their mouth.
yeah,
And it's extremely unfortunate. And like you said, it affects everything.
yeah,
I mean, from your emotional state, obviously your physical state, and just your overall energy and how you project yourself into the world.
right,
It really makes a big difference.
right,
Just the quality of the food that we eat is extremely important.
right,
And our mouths, that's one thing that really, and in the past few years, I've really started to think about it more because we didn't talk about this kind of stuff in dental school, like how the
no,
things you eat and obviously infections in your mouth and things like that, they through the bloodstream translate to the rest of your body, but we don't talk about gastrointestinal health and how the food we eat influences the rest of the gastrointestinal tract. Because if you're just an infection in your mouth, whether you're drinking water or eating pizza, whatever it is, when you swallow, that bacteria and things are going with it.
right.
And it's
I mean,
going to
leaky gut
affect.
wasn't a thing,
Yeah.
right? Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but leaky gut wasn't a thing. Functional medicine was just,
I
it
don't
was
remember it
there.
ever being talked about when I was in school.
No, no. And we definitely in dental school, that is something in all schooling in general. I feel every child should be,
Educated.
gradually exposed to
Yeah.
educated
Yeah.
on truly, truly, truly what types of food. But particularly as we get into, you're going to train a bunch of doctors. You need to be talking about food.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to train other
Um,
educators. You need to educate them
right,
properly on what people are putting. Because, and one of the things I tell people is 80% of the battle, per se, of their health is what they do at home.
right,
And if we're not able to educate people as to what to properly do at home beyond brushing and flossing and coming in for
right,
cleanings, I mean,
right.
how benefit? I mean, how much can we
You
really
can't.
help them?
No, it's an uphill battle. It's interesting. My brother-in-law just told me yesterday we were speaking, and he goes, "So apparently they were trying to figure out what drives people to pick up, why are milkshakes so popular in the morning? Like for a lot of these moms that drop their kids off, they're doing the run around, and for a lot of
I didn't
parents, I
even
shouldn't
know
say
that.
moms specifically. I didn't either, and apparently milkshakes are like a big deal. And it's because there is a population that perceives that to be a healthy, quick meal replacement for them to get. And it's sad. Like we as a public school system have failed
Hmm.
because that's not anywhere near healthy.
Yeah.
And I know you had mentioned like you have someone very close to you that they come from, a country where if you don't have the socioeconomic means, your diet is very high in veggies and fruits and things
Yeah,
that you should be eating,
nutrient dense foods.
right?
Where
Versus,
this culture,
yeah,
where
this culture is
it's the
not. You can
opposite.
get away with never eating a veggie, and then yet, you know, concurrently, you have hypertension, you have insomnia, you have other hormonal imbalances, you
Hmm.
have, dental caries, you have, MIs and diabetes and all sorts of other things.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that the three biggest medicines that we overlook and we don't stress enough are sleep, food, and sunshine.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean,
I
most people
mean,
are stuck inside a cubicle where
right,
there's not even a window. So
Right.
they don't even, if they didn't have a clock or a watch, or they don't even know what time it is.
Right. It's very sad to see the state of how things are, but I think it's because we've become so disconnected from nature. We've kind of, we have these beautiful buildings and cities, and I believe that they can coexist. I'm not trying
Oh,
to say like
100%.
everyone go out and live in the country.
Yeah.
I could not do that. I'm a city girl. Like I need to, but that being said, we have become disconnected with nature,
Hmm.
and that's why it's so easy for us to just single use plastics, whatever, we'll throw it away and we're done. We can move on with the rest of our day. But is your day really worth moving on to if you're not connecting with your higher self and trying to make yourself a better person
Hmm.
so that you can make others better?
Hmm.
That's the whole goal, right? Is
Hmm.
to move everyone towards a higher state of consciousness. It is a collective good. At
100%.
least that's what I feel.
No,
So
absolutely. I mean, just the simple fact that, like, what we were talking about with the different cultural differences. I mean, this is the United States of America. I mean, we have a plethora and tons of resources. There's no reason that people shouldn't have access, easy access, and
right,
honestly inexpensive access to nutrient dense foods. I mean,
right,
I'm not even necessarily talking about just going organic, even though obviously that's what I try and do almost all the time, as much as I can.
right.
But I mean, at least just, I mean, there's no reason that Brussels sprouts should be the same price or more expensive than a Big Mac or something like
Right.
that. I mean,
Right.
it doesn't make sense to
Yeah.
me.
And this nonsense that kids can't eat veggies, like, I don't buy it. Like, my kids have never, ever, I mean, are they going to pitch fits here and there? Of course. Are they going
Yeah,
to want to ask for cookies and chocolate? And, of course, they're kids. I
yeah,
want cookies and chocolate. Why would they not want cookies and chocolate?
yeah.
But my point is, you know, and again, I realize that I am speaking, especially in today's current climate, I realize I'm speaking from a point of privilege.
Hmm.
But that doesn't make it less valid in the sense that what I'm saying is because I believe that it should be the case for everyone.
Hmm.
Everyone should be able to have fresh fruits and veggies.
Hmm.
My kids eat them. We put balsamic and a little olive oil, salt, pepper. Every now and then we'll throw in a drizzle of honey and roast them. They are inhaling these
Hmm.
veggies,
Yeah.
and the nonsense that it's like, oh, if it's green, we set them up for that mindset. I
Hmm.
can't tell you how many times where I've heard someone ask my kids like, "Do you like veggies?" And you're just sitting here like, why are you asking it like that?
Yeah.
Like,
What's the tone about? Like,
you like it, you like veggies, right? Like, what veggies do you like? It's a very simple mindset shift that we are
yeah.
in desperate need of.
And it's
So,
just, it translates to, like, in like what you were talking about, there's just an imbalance overall, and I think
right,
in our culture. And
right,
I mean, it's not like you can only eat fruits and vegetables. Just that's what
yeah,
most of what your nutrition should be coming from. I mean,
right,
to be perfectly honest, sugar has zero nutritional value. We're
right,
talking about added sugars. I mean, there's just no real need to have it in our diet, but I understand the attraction to it.
right,
By all means, every once
right,
in a while, sometimes have some, but it's just
yeah,
create a healthy balance. And I don't look, and like you said, you're speaking from a position of privilege. I feel the same way, but your socioeconomic status does not prevent you from educating yourself on what is
right,
right, so what to
right,
aspire to do. And
right,
to be perfectly honest,
right,
you can grow your own food. Seeds
right,
cost cents.
right,
So, and yes, it takes time and it takes dedication, things like that, but there are ways. I know people that create ways for themselves to make these things happen. So
right,
it is
right,
possible, and everybody's circumstances are different. And to be perfectly honest, that's one of the reasons why I started doing these types of things, because I want to help be some sort of a resource for people. Or at least if
right.
I don't know how to do something, I can meet other people that know how to do these different things.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, I feel like too, it's not necessarily socioeconomic status that determines diet. Although, I mean, yes, it's a huge
mhm,
key player. But there are lots of people who have, ample financial freedom,
mhm,
and, they're still driving through McDonald's. They're
100%.
still,
I,
buying these
I,
processed foods that
I've seen it.
no one, there's no reason anyone needs McDonald's. I'm sorry. There's just
I
not.
agree with you. I mean, like, to each his own, and obviously people can do whatever they want, but I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't see the value and then I certainly don't mean to take away from anybody's entrepreneurial, drive. You own a McDonald's franchise. I, support your, I don't even know. But I mean, I just feel like
Get it.
I understand that this is not a one-sided issue. I understand it's a multifactorial
Of
issue.
course, yeah.
But there is nothing wrong with eating lots of fruits and veggies, and there's,
Yeah.
as you said, a multitude of ways to do it.
Yeah, and like
Um,
Patty just said in the comments, I mean, the kids will eat what you give them. I mean, if you bring
right,
them up eating the correct things, first of all, neurologically speaking, it changes their palate.
right,
If a child is used to eating something, and I think it was in the first 7 years of life, something like that, that their palate is created neurologically. Throughout the rest of their life, they're going to be more prone to eat healthier,
right,
nutrient dense foods. I mean,
right,
it's very simple and basic. I mean, and obviously there's cultural factors and I mean religious factors and things like that come into play, and how us as adults were raised is very different because we have more knowledge now, to be perfectly honest about these
right,
things. The
right,
knowledge was there, it just wasn't so widespread. So
right,
I think now having the knowledge, even if you're not able to fully do it yourself and it's harder for an adult to make those changes, do it for your kids. I
right.
mean, at least
It's
promote that
yeah,
for them and give them the opportunity that you didn't necessarily have.
right. No, I agree. I mean, I grew up eating McDonald's. It
Hmm.
was, you know, a lot of conscious choice to go through and slowly, you're not going to make these changes overnight. You're going
Hmm.
to make these changes. Maybe you're going to choose to pass on the McDonald's once, that one time,
Yeah.
right? And then maybe 3 or 4 months later, you're going to think about it again and be
Hmm.
like, well, okay, like these are things that happen over time, and they're not things that I say out of judgment because I was that person.
Hmm.
This is not, holier than thou, whatever. It's tough, especially when I was talking to, I don't know if you follow the superhero dentist, but I was talking
Hmm.
to Dr. Loopshaw. He's a pedodontist. And we were talking about how we are all products of a broken system.
Hmm.
Um, and at some point, it's like you go through school, they don't talk about diet the way they
Oh,
should.
not
Like
at
they talk
all.
about anticipatory guidance, and then, you want to avoid this, and these are foods that are high in sugar, these are foods that are not. But they don't ever really talk to you about toothpaste. They don't talk to you about what's in toothpaste. They
Yeah.
don't talk to you about what is, these basic things that you should be telling people that are going to become healthcare providers and being on the front lines as far as, well checks and preventive care and things like that.
Hmm.
So you kind of grow up in this system, and McDonald's is right by the dental school. So you roll in because you're going to be late for that gross anatomy test, and you got to get something. And you're this poor dental student that doesn't have the time or the
Yeah.
financial means. You're going to grab that fast food and then head to class, and then
Hmm.
wonder like, why am I so tired all the time?
Yeah. Or
You
why
know,
can't you focus
why
or
can't I
just like
focus?
falling asleep? I
Yeah,
get
I
it.
had 5 cups of McDonald's coffee. Why can't I focus? It's nuts. But I really think that it's just such a, if we do it right, it can be a very feasible, sustainable, both for habit wise, lifestyle wise, and for the planet,
Hmm.
sustainable shift. And it's way cheaper. Eating well is so much cheaper
Oh,
than
yeah.
on the back end having to be admitted to the hospital. Like, this is a drain on society,
Hmm.
I feel. Having all these people that they just haven't been it's not their fault. They have not.
It's education. It really,
It's
really is.
education, it's finance, it's just a lot of everything. And again, it's not to assign blame to one person or one, there is personal responsibility too.
Oh,
There it's
yeah.
I'm not trying to say that there's not, but we need to, I feel like, as society, expect more and demand more so that everyone can be healthier, because
Absolutely.
everyone has a right to being healthy.
100%. And like you said, at the end of the day, it's like, yes, you can, there's the broken systems, there's this, that, and the other, but you have to be accountable for what you put in your body.
Right.
That's ultimately what it comes down to. So
Yeah.
I do want to shift a little bit because we are going to come back to some of the health aspects. But I want to talk about a little bit about mindfulness. And in your
Yeah.
own words, what is mindfulness?
Mindfulness is giving yourself a chance to be the best version of yourself.
Hmm.
Um, are you familiar with the story of the Golden Buddha?
No.
Okay. So in 1957,
Hmm.
there was this monastery that was relocating, and these monks, these Buddhist monks, were removing the statue of Buddha,
Hmm.
right? And it was this big clay statue. Well, in the process of moving it, one of the monks noticed a crack, and from the crack was emanating a golden light. So upon further investigation, they start to, gently remove these layers that are, and they turns out this statue is solid gold.
Oh, wow.
Um, and what had happened was, I think it was like 200 years before that, That monastery was being attacked by the Burmese army. So in an effort to preserve
Oh,
what was
that's
valuable,
amazing.
the monks covered it
Yeah.
in clay, and all the monks were killed in that attack. So no one ever
Oh
knew
my God, that's
about
amazing.
this statue, right? So that story, it resonated with me very deeply because I feel like we all have that in us. We all have that golden light
Uh-huh.
that we just have to uncover the layers of mud and gunk. Um,
I can relate
because
to
we're
that
all,
more than I can get into right now. So,
yeah, like we all, I mean, you have to you have to just find a way to knock all that stuff off,
hmm.
right? And mindfulness is that active choice to take that, there's always a fork in the road.
Hmm.
So it's a lot of it's simple, but it's not easy, I always say. um it's just starting with one thing. I feel like it's like this big giant web,
Hmm.
right? It's like this big giant knot, and if you start on the outside edges, pick anywhere, pick sleep, pick food, pick exercise, pick whatever, start with one thing and become more aware, do some research, make some more conscious choices, and slowly and surely, you're going to start to see parallels and
Hmm.
see how, like, oh, I started to do this over here, but now I kind of, I started to work out and I started to do more yoga. Well, now I don't really want to eat
Hmm.
that, cheese pizza. I want to eat, a veggie pizza instead. And then
Hmm.
over time, it's going to be, I just want the veggies, right?
Hmm.
So it just, I feel like mindfulness is really that active choice to love yourself enough to allow yourself to be that golden light.
Beautiful. That's an amazing analogy and description to describe what mindfulness is. And how would you say that you incorporate mindfulness in your daily life?
So I start every morning with I'm supposed to be writing it down. I'm not always the best at writing it down, but I do always start every morning with something that I'm truly grateful for. And I'm
Hmm.
not saying like, oh, I'm grateful for my food, I'm grateful for my house. Something that really makes my heart burst with gratefulness.
Hmm.
I don't get out of the bed unless I've had that.
Okay.
I may skip meditation for the day. I may, everything else may fall apart, but that habit now that I have of thinking about something that's grateful for, that's made my, being something that to be grateful for, has really helped me shift from the working from a mindset of depletion
Hmm.
to a mindset of abundance.
That's beautiful.
Um, so I feel like just that small, simple shift has allowed me to bring my attention to things that I would have otherwise just dismissed as like nothing, right? I wouldn't have even noticed
Or you
it.
just
So
oversee it. Yeah.
you should oversee it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely true. And then I'm sure that translates over into practice. And what were some things that you've been doing in practice that how do you incorporate mindfulness in your practice?
Like my dental practice,
Mm-hmm.
or um, it's interesting when I have a procedure that's going south,
Mm-hmm.
not going south, but just it's just rough.
I know what you mean. It's
Um,
just it's not going as smoothly as you plan. Like if you wanted to do
right,
this prep in and get it all done in an hour, it's going to take you an hour and a half or something like that.
right,
Yeah.
right. Or like the patient keeps gagging,
Yeah.
or the assistant's having an off day,
Yeah.
or whatever. I've always found it best to just, I literally will just stop. I will
Mm-hmm.
put everything down. If I can have the patient close and give them a break, I will.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll literally just move my spine. I'll try to do like some uttanasana, or I mean, I don't even care. I will do it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Just a few yoga poses that I can do gloved up, mask on. I'm not touching
Uh-huh.
anything. So still scrubbed in. Anything that I can do to just move my body and move that Kundalini energy through.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just kind of breathe and really accept that I have very little control over anything else other than my own thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And just having faith that things will, I'll just stop and say, all right, I'm gonna do my best here, and how things happen is how things happen, and
Mm-hmm.
we will, I will be given the words to say if there was something that didn't go the way I wanted it to
Mm-hmm.
go.
Yeah.
um
And no, that's great because also if you start stressing and get frustrated about it, I mean, that's going to translate to the assistant, it's going to translate to the patient, and then everything's just going to take even longer.
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
I completely understand that. That's a great way to display it, and then the patient sees it too,
Yeah.
and you can talk to the patient throughout, and you can help calm them down.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
that's amazing. And how did you find yoga? Because I mean, obviously, you're saying you can do some poses and move Kundalini energy. So what and when in your life led you to yoga?
Yeah. So that postpartum depression hit me in the face, and
Mm-hmm.
again, being a product of the system, I told my husband, I was like, something is wrong with me. And, his response was, no, 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 no. You're just tired. Like, we had uprooted our life. We could move. We were in this tiny little transition space. We couldn't find a house. So there were all these other little stresses. He was taking his
Mm-hmm.
boards, he's working a lot. And he's like, you're just tired. And I just kind of sat there and I felt, like as support. And I don't mean to say he wasn't supportive. He's obviously been amazing, but he didn't know what to say. And
Mm-hmm.
it was easier to deny it than accept it head on. And I'm just sitting here like, well, now I just feel even more alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what to do. So I just happened to find this. So we put my son in Montessori school, and by next door to the Montessori school was this Bikram yoga studio. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, you know what? I think I'm gonna give this a shot. And so I did that for a little while. And it was interesting because they would have us do camel pose, and I couldn't do it. I would set myself up, and then I just couldn't go back. It would
Mm-hmm.
be too much. I felt like a weight on my chest.
Mm-hmm.
But I stuck with it and I kept going. And then eventually I phased out of the Bikram yoga, but I did more yoga at home on YouTube. And just the more things calmed down, and I actually got acupuncture as well.
Mm-hmm.
So once I got everything back and righted the ship, I just stuck with the yoga. It felt so good to do. And I felt like my body just was screaming at me if I didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just stuck with it. And it's something that I just really, really love to do now. So,
Beautiful.
yeah.
And you were never introduced to that. I mean, obviously, your parents were from India, so
Right.
you never really introduced to yoga before that.
It's funny, kids don't do what their parents ask them to do, or and it was the tone, right? It was a lot of like, you should do yoga, but I never saw my parents do it. Like,
Yeah.
not what they and I love mom, dad, if you're watching, I love you, but they just don't take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't, and so it's a lot of like, you should, but I'm not going to be that role model
Mm-hmm.
for you. And when I did see see my dad do it, it was just kind of like, this isn't fun. This isn't something that I, want to do. And it was really just a push comes to shove situation
Mm-hmm.
for me to be open to yoga. So, and I try to keep that in mind when I talk to people about it, because I've met people that are like, I hate yoga. I can't stand it. I don't want to do it. I don't understand why anyone would want to do it. And I have to really work hard to remind myself that I was that person too.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
We're on our own journey. That's
yeah,
what it comes down
exactly.
to.
Yeah,
We've all made mistakes. We've all been in our strange and unhealthy places. But yoga is really just again. I mean, it means connection. So I mean, the point of it all is to be able to connect deeper with yourself, and in that connection, you find that you are connected with everything and anything else going on around you and throughout the universe. So
right.
it's an extremely peaceful way to live, in my opinion. But
Right.
it's
It's not
taken
a
me.
workout. It's not,
No,
you don't do yoga, you live it. Right.
exactly.
So,
I mean, and that's what people get confused about. And I think that's what, obviously in my only experiences here in America, I mean, I think it's touted as an exercise routine. And yes, the asanas, there's power yoga and things like that where you can make it into a workout, and that's fine. I mean, there's different ways to incorporate yoga into your life, but that's not all. That's not even close to all that yoga is. So,
right.
And
Right.
I think that's what people really need to understand. It just is a very centering practice, and it brings a lot of peace to yourself, and creates a lot of peace in your life. So,
Right. Right.
and so if you could recommend something that people start doing right now to incorporate mindfulness in their life, what would be the one thing you'd recommend?
I think it would be, I feel like there's just many little things,
Mm-hmm.
so many little things that you can do that if you make it a habit, it just kind of becomes second nature.
Mm-hmm.
The gratefulness thing, practicing gratefulness, either when you wake up in the morning or when you go to bed at night, either one or
Mm-hmm.
both, is certainly a great place to start. Um, I think so often too, people are feeling a lot of things, and we're told as kids, stop crying,
Mm-hmm.
stop feeling the way you're feeling unless you're feeling happy.
Mm-hmm.
Happy is the only emotion that is
Mm-hmm.
okay. And I think we need to help undo that neural, wiring that we have, because it's okay to be pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be, it's not okay to hurt someone. It's not okay to be disrespectful but if you're feeling angry, that's okay to feel it. It's
Yeah.
okay to feel,
It's necessary to feel.
frustrated. It's exactly. And so it's been a game changer for me to really start accepting what I'm feeling. And I've just to the point now where we have it on our little smart home device that I have reminders set. And it's like, since we're all home,
Mm-hmm.
9 a.m., 12 p.m., and 3 p.m., the Alexa will go off and it'll say, check into your body.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just all stop and kind of take stock of where we're feeling. If we're feeling angry, then we're feeling angry and we sit with it. I
That's
don't
awesome.
ever, tell my kids, like I have told them, because I'm still learning, and I'm talking like I've been doing this forever, but it's not like I have. It's okay to be angry, but let's sit with it. And
Mm-hmm.
often when we sit with it instead of fight it, it just goes away.
Mm-hmm.
It may take a little bit, but it'll go away eventually. So just creating that habit of checking in, even if that means setting a reminder on your phone
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, I
Yeah.
think is a great way to start.
Absolutely.
And obviously the sleep and the food. I feel like those are whole separate IG topics anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
protecting your sleep, protecting the type of food you eat, and not every type of diet is going to be right for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to really get into that here, but be mindful of how powerful those things can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we have a little over 10 minutes, so I want to talk a little bit about dentistry. And for anybody that has questions that may not have seen in the beginning, like I said, after this live ends, I'm going to, just a couple minutes after, jump into another live with Seema where we're going to do a quick Q&A, maybe 10 minutes or so. So you can feel free to ask any questions, or just jump into the next live and ask the questions there. So what are some of the overall health benefits from practicing proper oral hygiene that you talk to people about?
Well, first of all, you're going to have less caries, right? Less pain, less, you have the ability to eat well because you are taking care of those teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you're going to, I think a lot of us now know the heavy link between diabetes, stroke, hyperlipidemia, all of those systemic conditions.
Mm-hmm.
But the was it Ayurvedology that said it
Yeah.
the best? I feel like, digestion starts with your hands.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like really if we're taking care of how we eat as far as with our food and what we eat and how we clean,
Mm-hmm.
You're really going to help. That mouth is your gateway to the rest of your body. So
That's exactly what I say to people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and like you said that Roberto had said that when we see the food, and we start salivating, and if you start touching the food, and I'm not saying I necessarily eat with my hands all the time, I
Right.
absolutely don't. But again, that's more of a cultural thing. But either way, when we see the food, I mean, our stomachs start preparing for that food.
Right.
So I mean,
Right.
that really is the beginning of the digestive process.
Right.
So
Well, even smelling it. I mean,
yeah,
you don't eat with your hands, fine, but you're still using your nose,
yeah,
your
all
eyes,
of your
hearing the
senses.
crackling or whatever.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So are there any specific tips that you give the patients about oral hygiene and things that they can do at home that maybe people struggle with, things like that?
Yeah. It's funny. So I don't know what you do personally, but I actually advocate for people to brush before breakfast.
Okay.
Um,
That's
simply
what I do.
Yeah. I mean, it just makes the food taste better.
Well, there's
But
that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. And then
no. I mean, I think you and I are kind of on the same page because this is what you do too.
yeah.
But it's, when you sleep at night, you have a lot of dry mouth that happens because you're mouth breathing, and, you don't need to secrete that much saliva, which means that the bacteria have a better environment in which to grow. And then, so there's more bacteria in your mouth when you wake up in the morning. And then when you eat that food, the more bacteria, they metabolize, especially if you're eating a breakfast high in sugars. They're metabolizing those sugars and then creating this acid burst as a part of their metabolism, which then, as you well know, softens the enamel and then puts you at increased risk for caries and things like that.
Yeah.
So, by removing that amount of bacteria before you eat, there's less bacteria to cause that pH drop. And also, I know people tend to want to, when, especially people that have, when they throw up or whatever, people, they eat breakfast and then they rush off to brush their teeth and then they're out the door. Well, your body has not had a chance to bring that pH of your mouth back up to where your enamel can reharden, right? So they say a minimum of 20 minutes. I always say 30 just because you want to be sure. How many people have time to eat breakfast and then wait
like
an additional 30 minutes to then do a 2 to 3 minute meticulous oral hygiene routine? It's not happening. So if you do brush right after, you're brushing away all that protective enamel. And then you wonder why you get cavities.
And that's really what the microbiome is, all those different bacteria and things, and how like what you were saying, how stabilizing the oral microbiome or the bacterial load that's in your mouth before versus after brushing makes a big difference.
Right. So, I mean, that's the biggest thing I always say is brush before breakfast and then, rinse with water or something. Don't, if you feel like you need to kind of clean up, wait that 30 minutes, floss once a day. And I prefer like actual floss instead of the floss picks. I feel like you're going to be able to wrap around that tooth better.
100%. And I don't know why some people are told otherwise, but I mean, I understand when people, if the dexterity of it, they can't do it or whatever, then I totally understand. But there's no substitute for regular floss. For anybody that's curious, whether it's a water pick or any of the other gadgets, there's just no substitute for it. You create more tension with your hands. You have more capabilities with your hands. So anybody that's wondering, just floss.
And there is a how to floss highlight on my page.
Oh, very cool.
Where I talk about which fingers to use, because a lot of people want to use these, and that's not going to be your best bet. So
awesome. So, and just briefly restate, because I know you mentioned it before. What are some of the most common systemic conditions that are linked with oral disease?
Diabetes, heart attacks. I think for pregnant women, it's the premature delivery, low birth weight. Those are just the top ones that come to mind.
And in addition, I've read some papers on Alzheimer's being linked to bacterial infections. Even some cancers, which was somewhat surprising, that because I'm like, why haven't I heard about that? I mean, and I'm not talking about oral cancer. I'm talking about cancers in other parts of the body, like the pancreas and things like that. And how the microbiome of our mouth actually affects the microbiome of different organs and things like that.
And I would say too, the oral mucosa is the most absorptive surface in your body. Be cautious about what you're putting, in your mouth, as far as the type of toothpaste or the type of food or whatever it may be. I mean, just because you're spitting it out does not mean you're not absorbing it.
100%. So, and everybody knows that residue stays in their mouth. You can taste it. I mean, and it's there for probably at least an hour, I would imagine. So I mean, it's still there to be absorbed, and you're swallowing it, whether and especially if you eat after you brush. I mean, then obviously you're just going to be swallowing whatever's left in there.
Exactly.
So I do want to start the closing because we have about 5 minutes. And like I said, everybody, if you just joined in and you didn't hear me before, we are going to start another live just a couple minutes after this for a quick Q&A and some other things we didn't really get to touch on. But what I want to close with you, Seema, is if you could only share 3 things that people should start implementing into their life immediately to improve their health, what would they be? Sleep, drink lots of water, carry a reusable water bottle around with you. If you need to, if water bores you, infuse it with a little bit of mint, like fresh mint leaves, not the Mio
processed nonsense. Um, sleep, sleep, water, and really just take some time for yourself to do whatever it is that's going to make you be that better version of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can serve others with a full well rather than trying to serve from a dry well.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
No, that's
you
great.
deserve to be the best version of yourself.
100%. 100%. So just give us a quick recap about you, some of the things, because I know you're doing some things online as well, where you're
Yeah.
talking to some different doctors. And like that's a new project that you're doing. Best ways to get in touch with you, if anybody that wants to reach out to you, social media, website, anything like that.
Yeah. So my website is seemasaysnamaste.com. Right now, my Instagram handle is at Seema Says Namaste. Um, and then as far as things that I'm doing with other doctors, right now I'm doing a 4-part mini series called Mindfully Nourished with Dr. Supriya Rao. It's every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central, where we talk about food, how we consume it, and just our attitude towards it, and how it's not just what you eat, it's how you eat. So check that out. Some of those are going to be on my page. The ones that are recorded on her page are obviously going to be on her IGTV. And her handle is at GutsyGirlMD. Another one that I'm doing that's ongoing is Tooth Talks with the superhero dentist, Dr. Deep Cha, who's a pedodontist. And we've only done one episode where we talked about toothpaste. That was
Mm-hmm.
it's a great episode to check out. It's also on my IGTV tab. And we're going to be doing one this Thursday about fluoride.
Awesome.
So yeah, if you guys have the time, it's going to be Thursday at 8 p.m. Central. And then every other week we do Mindful Monday with Shivangi Rao. Her handle is at Rowdy Recipes, and we do just a weekly quick meditation for
Beautiful.
those that are new to meditation and need some help getting started.
Beautiful. That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming on here. Again, we are going to jump over to another live right after this one because this cuts us off at an hour, and we're going to do a quick Q&A and maybe discuss a couple other topics that we didn't really get to discuss on here in this live. But I want to thank everybody for coming in and watching. I really, really appreciate you being here and
Yes.
taking your Saturday to come and watch this. And if you have any comments, feedback, suggestions, please message me. I'm always open to suggestions. If there's anybody that you would like to see on the show, I'm more than happy to reach out to them. You can check out all the previous episodes on my YouTube channel or my website. The website is www.mindful.doctor. And on YouTube, it's just the name of the show, The Art of Mindful Medicine. Again, Instagram Live on Saturdays at noon Eastern. And as always, I end with a quote. So this quote is from Plato. There are two things a person should never be angry at: what they can help and what they cannot. So again, thank you all for coming out
Love
here
that one.
and watching. Yeah, me too. It's really cool. And as always, stay awesome, stay mindful. And again, people that are already in here, I know there's a few of you guys. Feel free, ask questions. I already wrote one of the questions down, but I just want to talk about a couple other things that Seema and I had discussed a little bit first. But as you write your questions in, I'm going to write them down. We are definitely going to answer them, so please do. And don't be shy. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Just please ask. That's what we're here for. That's why I'm doing this, so to help people with whether it's a silly question or something they're confused about, whatever it is. So I know, Seema, we were talking about the oral microbiome and some of the health benefits and things like that. And why is it that you feel, or why do you feel that the people, I mean, obviously I can only speak in the United States. That's where the only place I've lived. Why do you think we're not properly educated on oral health?
Well, there's a lot of money
Yeah.
in keeping people sick.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that being married to medicine. And I don't believe that that's how a lot of physicians practice.
Of course
Certainly,
not. Yeah,
they
yeah.
feel like we're all, but again, we're a product of our system.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, a lot of it too is, like I was talking to a family member, and we're not supported as providers to spend time. We're not given the education ourselves, but B, we're not given the time. RVUs are a big deal. Production is a big deal. And it's, again, walking that line of serving the patient versus being efficient with your time. And, when someone's pre-diabetic, we have to make time to invest and talk about all these things we can do to help them go down that path.
Mm-hmm.
And not, well, not, we won't always get everyone, but it's a lot easier for a lot of these people that are practicing, in lower socioeconomic neighborhoods or, with given populations, or even people that, are well off. Like people that are well off, they don't have the time to be in the doctor's office. So they don't want to hear it. They just want the quick fix, right? Like just give me the pill and I want to be out of here.
Yeah.
And so, just put me on metformin because that's easier than me being mindful and trying to change something so I don't have to go down this path at all.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. And again, it goes back to what we had been talking about, the cultural imbalance. I mean, and we live in a world, and especially growing up, I was very much a part of it, being an athlete, instant gratification. Yeah. I mean, I wanted results now. I wanted to be the best now. I wanted to do all these things now. And it takes time. And it's a humbling process. And I think it's really necessary for maturity purposes to learn that. So yeah, and again, like you were saying, yes, I'm sure there's a wide range of medical practitioners, and they're all along the spectrum. And some people just want to focus on the reps and what they can do to get more kickbacks and money and things like that. Whereas some people really, really focus on doing things the right way and just focus on their patients. And they don't make as much money. But I mean, in my opinion, in the end, I mean, that's not really what we're here for. Money's a man-made thing. And we're seeing right now with the crisis that we're going through, how the financial structure that we've created is very easily altered and shaken to its core. So it's really, really important. And
I want to say too, sorry.
Go ahead. No.
What I really feel is it's important, as much as we talk about mindfulness for our patients and for ourselves, as just people, not as healthcare providers. I believe that mindfulness should be a standard of care in medicine.
100%.
End of story.
100%.
I know for a lot of people, you go in, we all battle ego, right? We all battle this desire to be heard, to be validated, to see success with, I want you, when you come into my office seeking my help, I want you to do exactly as I say and exactly how I say to do it. And I want you to come back and I want you to do all these things. And I also think it's inexcusable for it to not work, right? Because that would mean I'm wrong. Right?
You must have done something wrong if this didn't work.
Right, exactly. And we are all guilty of that in some form or fashion. This is not a place of judgment. I don't say that out of judgment. I'm, trying to work as best as I can with ahimsa and nonviolence. But it is, I really believe that if we can get these med students, these college students, these kids at kindergarten, preschool, these kids can meditate. These kids, they can do it. My own kids, I've taught them. Yeah. And it's going to be a lifelong practice. There's days they don't do it. There's days they get mad. There's days I get mad. But if we try, we can change the world. But it has to start with us.
100%. It's the little decisions that we make that add up to those big changes. 100%. Right. So, and again, it's just something that we have to start. And it has started. I mean, there's definitely been that kind of movement, and we just have to continue to infuse it into the culture and into our youth, because as we're seeing today, I mean, there's a lot of things going on, and the older generations are the ones that are really being affected by the things going on in the world right now. So our youth are really our strength and our future. So if we can teach them to be better than we are, and better than how we were taught, just the possibilities are absolutely endless. I mean, I think we as human beings have the capacity, an endless capacity for knowledge and creation and community. And the more and more we bring that to each other, just even as small as doing little things like this. I mean, the more that we do that, the better our future for our youth is going to be, 100%.
Yeah, so absolutely.
So let's see, what else did we not talk about? One thing, and again, anybody that's watching, please ask your questions, write them down, and we will definitely get to them. What do you feel about teeth whitening?
I mean, I did it.
No. I mean, I've done it too.
I did it for my wedding when back when I drank soda and everything else. Have I thought about do I want to do it now? Yeah, I think I do want to, but I'm looking into more natural alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
Um, from what I've read, citrus oils like lemon and orange are great for brightening.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I have not done much research. It's just stuff I've kind of heard and I haven't had time to look at.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's kind of an individual choice. I don't believe in these, Zoom, one stop, like let's whiten your teeth, let's straighten your teeth, and you don't need a doctor. That is,
Oh, that whole side, I didn't even think about that. That whole side of things, like
it's
with
baloney.
Smile Direct Club and all these things.
Yeah,
I don't know if I should be like naming one particular brand, but that's just the one that comes to mind. But all of those brands where you're not fully under the care of a doctor, I completely dismiss and,
right.
and there's just no credibility there.
Right. I will never, ever, ever advocate anyone going and doing one of these Zooms or whatever out, whatever in
Oh,
in
and
the
like in the
mall or
malls and
on the
things like that. Oh
kiosks
my
and
God, it's
things. I'm never
terrible.
gonna.
Yeah.
The toothpaste, I would invite any of you that's listening, head on over to my page and listen to Tooth Talks episode 1, the one
Mm-hmm.
about toothpaste. We talk about a lot of harmful ingredients that are in things like Colgate, Crest, these brands that we grew up with and love
Mm-hmm.
and trust, and surprise, surprise, sponsor a lot of lunch and learns for dental students when we're
Oh
going
yeah.
through, right? A lot of this brightening, it's the toothpaste and things they're very abrasive. A lot of them are plastic. They're going into the oceans and polluting, our ocean life, and then
Mm-hmm.
in invariably it comes back to us as far as our own health.
Mm-hmm.
So I would use caution. I feel like just stick to whole natural foods. Avoid sipping on things like coffees all day and such. And smoking obviously is a big one to avoid. There's lots of things you can do naturally and preventively to avoid needing that whitening. But again, to each their own. And whatever you decide to do, I suggest that you do it with the guidance of a physician or a physician, not the doctor, that actually knows what they're doing, a dentist that knows what they're doing, and one that you trust.
Yeah, and I've worked at several different private practices, and whitening is something that is definitely, in my experience, pushed on people. And how do you feel about the amount of hydrogen peroxide and carbamide peroxide and all these things that are in the whitening? Because people want to whiten their teeth like 3-4 times a year.
Right.
And I mean, I've done
you're not good enough the way you are, right? You're never good enough the way you are. Change it because you're not good enough.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole other dimension to it for sure.
Right.
But I mean, speaking physically, it's also very detrimental to our teeth to do these things.
Yes.
And people don't really understand. I mean, first of all, hydrogen peroxide is toxic. I mean, it is caustic to our tissues. It's really not something that's supposed to be in our bodies.
Right.
I mean, I've heard of people rinsing with it. And obviously it's an ingredient, and I can't really blame them. It's an ingredient in things that we use. So it's like, obviously they think it's okay to put it in their mouth.
Right.
But
it's the most absorptive surface of their body, right?
Yeah, and it's the proportion of it too. I mean, the percentage of hydrogen peroxide or carbamide peroxide in a lot of whitening products makes a humongous difference as to not only obviously the results, but how it affects your body and the tissues. And like you said, it's very absorptive in what goes on in the body. So,
I think it's interesting now that you say that, because I remember going through dental school and being told like, sensitivity is a normal side effect. If that happens to you or a patient that is using, the whitening products, just tell them, oh, it's normal. Maybe back off a little bit, maybe use a little less, or you do it a little less often. You'll eventually, what is it, the saying, the turtle wins the race. Like it's the slow and steady wins the race sort of thing. Just keep at it though. And now I'm like, wow, if your teeth are sensitive, it's because your body's pissed off at you and is saying, stop, stop.
Absolutely.
So, there's that too.
Yeah. I mean, if you want your teeth to be whiter, generally, I mean, if you're going to resort to whitening your teeth, maybe do it once a year. But beyond that, I mean, pay attention to what you're eating and drinking. Smoking, which I obviously don't advocate, is definitely one of the biggest causes of tooth staining. So is coffee, but tea is number one. So and
tea is supposed to be healthy, right? Like a good source of fluoride and all these antioxidants and whatever. But you can't be sipping on it all day.
Yeah, definitely not all day. So speaking of fluoride, and you were talking about toothpaste and things like that, what's your opinion on fluoride toxicity? And then also one thing I do want to mention is mercury toxicity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm honestly still doing my research. I'm undoing that neural programming that
Mm-hmm.
has been, done in dental school. And not that I think it's wrong. I think that I need to I have not myself done the research.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the process actually because of the Tooth Talks episode that's going to be airing on Thursday. But one thing that I have been made aware of, I practice geriatric dentistry.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my career has been geriatrics and doing dentistry in the mobile setting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to caution, osteoporosis is such a big thing in that population where also dental caries is prevalent because xerostomia is a side effect of all these multitude of medications that these
Mm-hmm.
patients tend to be on. And so people want to push fluoride. Well, fluoride can, cause brittle bones more so than
100%.
people realize.
And teeth.
And teeth, right? Like, so we want to be careful, in children because we don't want to develop, hyperfluorosis or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. But for the geriatric population, there is something to fluoride is definitely the subject of dental caries is again a multifactorial one, just
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of other things. I think it has a lot more to do with your diet than
Mm-hmm.
whether or not your toothpaste and mouth rinse is fluoridated or not.
Yeah, and that's what it ultimately comes down to. I mean, first of all, from the readings and things that I've done is before fluoride was put into the water systems and things like that, it wasn't even properly researched, to be perfectly
Right.
honest, from what I understand.
Right.
And it's listed on the FDA's website as a neurotoxin. So, I mean, when you have something like that, and then you see it in not just, again, this is the cumulative problem, not just that it's in one area like toothpaste or something like that. It's that it's in toothpaste. It's in a multitude of dental products like dental cements and polishing pastes and things like that. But it's also in our, like I said, the water supply. It's in soil. It's found in different foods and things like that. So it's the cumulative effect of that, because what people don't really understand is on a chemical level how these different chemicals influence our cellular structures and how the molecules that we need in our body to create, for example, like healthy teeth and bones, are interfered with by these toxins. So it's just the cumulative effect of them, and
Right.
that's why I think
So
it's people really need to be aware of it.
exactly. I mean, I'm not going to, I want to be careful in saying that, fluoride is never the answer. I'm not going to say that it's always the answer.
Mm-hmm.
It is always going to be a multifactorial case by case situation.
Mm-hmm.
But, it starts with, there is such a thing as too much.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't remember exactly how it was worded, but one of the studies that I had been reading is that fluoride actually, it makes the teeth more resistant to an acidic environment,
Right.
but it doesn't actually strengthen our teeth. It can actually replace some of the minerals and things that are supposed to be in our teeth, whether
Right.
it's calcium
Right.
fluoride and calcium
Right.
phosphorus and things like that.
Right.
So, and that can, in turn, like you said, like it affects the bones. It affects the hydroxyapatite structure that's found in teeth and
Right.
bones. That's what makes our teeth and bones very hard. So it interferes with things like that.
Right.
So it's
And
just really,
increased density does not mean that it's not going to be still prone to brittle. Like brittle is a
yeah,
very different factor than density.
yeah.
So
There's again, like you're saying, it's just very important for people to understand there's a time and a place for all of these different things. Just like versus Eastern Western versus Western medicine, there's a time and a place for these different things, and they all have their purpose. I mean, someone with caries on every tooth or most of their teeth, yes, fluoride is probably a good option for them because it again, like I said, it reduces the effect of the acidity in their mouths on their teeth. But
right.
again, you can go back to the source of it. Why do they have such an acidic environment in their mouth?
Right.
So that's really the if you want to call it a cure. I mean, if you want to look into people's habits, what they eat, what they drink, things like that. I mean, that affects the pH of our saliva.
Right.
So, but with the toothpaste that you guys in Tooth Talks, what you were talking about, what were some of the things that you pointed out with the toothpaste? Because I know the first question we had is if there's a toothpaste that you recommend for kids.
Oh yeah. Well, so things you want to avoid are things like, and this is not specific to toothpaste,
Mm-hmm.
but this is, we're dentists talking about it. So SLS, sodium lauryl sulfate, and sodium laureth sulfate,
Mm-hmm.
SLES. It's an ingredient that is totally not necessary, but is added because in our minds we think if our toothpaste foams, that means we're doing a better job, right? It's cleaning for me. In reality, I almost feel like toothpaste is not necessary. What's necessary is you brushing. It's that mechanical action of you physically removing the microbiome from that pellicle from your tooth, which is why flossing is so important.
Exactly.
So, and I still will advocate for the use of toothpaste because I've tried it without, and I still like that minty feeling. And I think that, there's certainly no harm in using toothpaste as long as it's the appropriate one.
Exactly.
So SLS, SLES is something to look for. There was one claim that there's antifreeze in toothpaste. I want to be very clear. There is not antifreeze in toothpaste, but there is a component. There's ethylene glycol and propylene glycol, which are main ingredients used in antifreeze that is also present in toothpaste. The jury's kind of out about this one as far as whether it's actually harmful or not. But in my mind, if you're questioning it at all, stay away from it. There's no reason for you to ingest it.
Yeah.
Any dyes, there's a humectant. It's used as a humectant is why they put it in there. And there are alternatives.
Oh, 100% there's alternatives.
Yeah, there's alternatives. A couple of other ones are parabens. Parabens are a big one because they're meant to preserve, right? They're in your makeup, they're in your lotion, they're in your shampoos, they're in a lot of things that we don't really think about because they're big name brands sold in big box stores. And parabens, again, none of this stuff is definitively carcinogenic or harmful specifically in a direct link way. But there was a 2004, I believe, British study of women, and it's an N of a very small number, only 20. But in 19 of these women, I believe, that had breast cancer, parabens were, or I'm mixing it up now, the details are leaving me. But my point was they found parabens being in the unaltered state in these tumors. So what that leads you to believe is parabens are not something that can be metabolized by the body. And therefore, it's like anything, when you build up enough of it, your body's going to get mad and, potentially develop something like cancer. So
100%.
And again, it's not an end all be all. A lot of these ingredients are also environmentally in nature not the most friendly as far as the manufacturing process or harvesting process. So there's that to consider too. I love Young Living oils, essential oils. I use them literally every day. Are you? Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I think that they, I use them for my skin. I use them, and I don't use them for every single thing. And I would advise anyone with children to be very, 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 very cautious of essential oil use, especially when you're ingesting them with kids.
100%.
But I would say, diffusing them around. My kids use the Young Living toothpaste that is for children. My husband and I use the Thieves version.
I was going to say the Thieves one I've seen. I haven't tried it yet.
Love it.
I love Thieves.
I love it.
I love the Thieves. So, I mean...
Yeah. No, I mean, I love it. I think that it definitely is something to get used to because it's not, like I said, it doesn't foam. And I kind of feel like my lips stick to my teeth more. So I'm kind of like, as I'm falling asleep, I'm kind of like moving my lips around to make sure that I just don't like that feeling. But I personally, and this is not research-based, this is not anything, I have felt like I am developing less of a pellicle, like a less plaque when I floss. It's just not there as much anymore. My son used to get aphthous ulcers all the time when he wasn't sleeping well, once a month at least, and poor guy for 2 weeks would be miserable. He has not gotten a single ulcer since switching.
That's awesome. So they have a kid's toothpaste separate from
the
Thieves.
They have Kid Sense. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So there's also the other brands.
Oh, the Kid Sense. Yes, that's like the line for kids. I didn't realize they had a tooth. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So then there's also Hello, which is available at Target and Jack and Jill. But there are some other ones that are listed in the Tooth Talks episode.
Great.
So.
One thing, I mean, I would definitely like. What's the other doctor's name that you said that you do the Tooth Talks?
Dr. Deep Shah.
Deep Shah.
And his handle is at the Superhero Dentist.
Yes, that's right. Because I do follow him, and I believe he follows me as well. He's definitely someone I want to connect with because. One brand that I've recently connected with, and you can find it out on my page because I actually decided to be an ambassador for them because I thought it was a really cool brand, was Risewell. And what it's fluoride free, and what they've done is they use hydroxyapatite as the main remineralizing ingredient rather than fluoride. And it's an all natural product. It's safe enough to eat. And I mean, research-wise, I mean, hydroxyapatite has been used in Japan for like 40 years as their gold standard. So,
Right. Right.
for just seeing those few things, I mean, like this is a great option. And then they sent me some. I like it a lot. I think it's great. And they have a kids, and it's flavored. So the adult is the mint, and they have a kids that's flavored as cake batter. And
Oh,
to be
nice.
perfectly honest, my girlfriend's son fell in love with it. I mean,
Huh.
it's obviously, the kids, it can be a battle to get them to brush their teeth.
Right.
He wouldn't stop brushing his teeth. I think the first time he tried it, he had the toothbrush in his mouth for like 10 minutes.
Wow. But it's like all natural.
Yeah.
There's no dyes. There's
I
no,
don't believe there's
yeah.
anything. I think it's all natural. I have to double check the ingredients again because I just don't have it right in front of me. But
Yeah.
when I was looking at it, those were things I was looking for.
Yeah.
So like their motto is literally it's safe enough to eat. So
Okay.
not that I
Well,
recommend it, but
yeah.
it's because for a lot of different reasons. But it is a safer product, and I found that I like it a lot. The flavor after like you said, that biofilm, that plaque that builds up. I personally found that it doesn't build up, and my teeth feel so much smoother
Yeah.
after using it, and it's great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And I have noticed there are studies about thieves and periodontitis as far
hmm
as being a good antimicrobial
yeah,
agent to use in the prevention and the treatment of periodontitis, conjunctively, of course, with routine scaling and root
of course.
planing and so on and so forth.
Because I think because it has clove oil in it, and clove
Yeah.
is supposed to be
Seasonal.
very
Yeah.
antibacterial and things like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
were there any other recommendations or anything that stand out to you that people that you guys discussed in that Tooth Talk episode when it comes to toothpaste and things like that?
No, the amount of toothpaste, I think it's important to be cautious of the marketing here
hmm
because of the propylene glycol, the humectants and things, the parabens that are often found in these toothpastes. If you look at the way, like a picture of toothpaste, when they advertise it, it's on this toothbrush and it's this
The
big,
entire
thick
thing, yeah, yeah.
strip, right? I always, whether you're using Colgate Crest, whatever, or an all natural alternative, I suggest that people really reconsider how much you're using. 'Cause you
hmm
really only need a pea-sized amount. For children, I would even say half a pea-sized amount,
hmm
just because you just really don't need that much. Um, they want you to use as much as you can because
Then you buy
then you
more.
need to use it up and you buy more. But and the all natural alternatives also, I will say, for those of you that are wishing to switch over or considering switching, it's not going to taste the same. It's not going to feel the same texture wise
Yeah, definitely
because
not.
of the lack of stuff. It's going to be more like a gel,
hmm
which is good too because it's going to get better in between your teeth and things anyway. But just be cautious of there's going to be an acclimation period there. But
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody has their palate, like we were talking about before. That you adapt, and I
right,
mean it's really important to just look at the ingredients of the things that you're using. And
yeah,
I know you like eco-friendly things, and I think the tube of toothpaste, it's also really important to make sure that that's actually recyclable
yeah.
or biodegradable at least.
Yeah, yeah. That's one thing I've still haven't found.
I have to look. I feel like Roswell's brand was. I mean, at least recyclable, but I have to look if it's compostable or something. I don't think it was compostable, but I think it was
Yeah,
definitely recyclable and things like that. I'll
yeah,
definitely let you know about that one.
yeah.
So I appreciate everybody coming in here. I don't see any other questions. Let me just check back again. Oh, there was another one. So effects of oral products, for example, like toothpaste on the tongue. Are there any effects that stand out with the tongue?
I mean, again, like the SLS, SLES is a known skin irritant.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are prone to, if you have leaky gut, if you have IBS, if you have all of these, these things, or if you're just like my kid, right, who just gets ulcers a lot,
Mm-hmm.
your tongue is very highly absorptive, and so you may find like a little burning, a little tingling. I can't say that definitively again because these are just everything is such a multifactorial problem. There
Mm-hmm.
is no black and white. It could be, a vitamin deficiency. It could be. I also advise, like we call them. I'm gonna try to think of the English word, tongue scrapers.
Yeah.
But that's really important for people to, I feel, to get rid of that. If you're at least, if you're brushing, that's great. But I feel like tongue scrapers really get back there and get all
Mm-hmm.
that gunk off. You might find that your food tastes better, or you might see that your mucosa is less inflamed just
Mm-hmm.
because all of that stuff isn't stuck on there.
I mean, I think a lot of people
But
might
as far
not
as
realize. No, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just saying as far as direct effect, I don't really have a lot to say that I feel comfortable standing
That's
up and saying
definitive.
definitively.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, I understand that. But again, anything that is known to be toxic in any way, I mean, when it's on a sensitive surface of tissue, like the tissues in your mouth and tongue and things like that, I mean, it's going to have some sort of an effect.
right.
Um, and like you were saying, it is also very, very, and I see this with a lot of patients, it's extremely important that people actually either brush or use a tongue scraper because the majority of bacteria in our mouth is on our tongue.
Right.
And people don't realize that. And you can get infections of your tongue and different things like that. And I mean, if anybody has any questions about that, you can just Google black hairy tongue, and you're probably not going to be thrilled at what you see. So don't
Mm-hmm.
if you have a queasy stomach or anything like that, don't look up pictures. But I mean, there are a lot of disorders that can arise from not taking care of your tongue in particular. Um,
Right.
how often should a water irrigator water pick? So John is asking how often you would recommend using a water pick or using it all or in addition to what?
Again, I'm not, without knowing specifically your periodontal state, meaning
Mm-hmm,
like the state of your gums and your bone height, your pockets around your teeth. It's hard for me to definitively say. I would, for in terms of prevention, I don't believe in any of these like mechanical buy this and whatever. Floss is your best friend, and it's
mm-hmm,
not going to be the picks. It's going to be the actual thread traditional floss. You're going to need about an arm's length. There's a highlight on my page on how to floss,
mm-hmm,
as far as which fingers to use and the mechanism by which you need to what you're looking for when you're trying to floss. So I invite you to check that out. I will say if you have something like a wisdom tooth coming in and you've got this flap of gum and you're not
mm-hmm,
sure, whether you're going to take it out or not or what, or sometimes if people, they have gum disease, periodontitis, and they have deeper pockets, flossing's not going to physically be able to
mm-hmm,
get all the way down in there. And so in that case, uh, I would again use it as not as a replacement for floss, an additional step to, do twice a day and get in there in those pockets in an attempt to get flush everything out.
mm-hmm.
But it's not anything that I would recommend as anyone needing if provided your gums are healthy
I
and you have the manual dexterity to use floss.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That's exactly what I tell patients. I mean, people always ask me about a water pick, and I said that if that's something you're interested in, you want, that's great, but it's not a substitute for floss. I
Right.
think it's like you said, it's great to use in addition to, and I think that's really important for people to understand that there is no substitute for just good old fashioned floss.
Right. Or if you have braces, I think, and that's not one that I
Yeah.
have experience with. I never had braces, but I'm sure like my son's going to need them. I plan on being the one in there, being I'm going to be on him constantly to make sure
Yeah.
that things are clean.
Yeah. It's really important.
But that's maybe one other area where I would feel like, okay, maybe a water pick might be helpful.
Yeah, I think a water pick would definitely be helpful in those situations. It's just there's no substitute for that physical or mechanical flossing and actually cleaning the sides of the tooth where your toothbrush just cannot get, especially when you have braces on. And
Right.
I know that can be annoying for especially kids. I mean, I remember I did have braces, and I remember how annoying the floss threaders are, and I mean, every freaking tooth, I get it. It can take you like a solid 10, 15 minutes to floss. And when
Yeah.
you're a kid, you don't do anything that you don't want to do for 10 or 15 minutes. So,
Exactly. That's a long time for a kid.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it is extremely important. So, like you said, moms, dads, definitely be on top of them with that kind of stuff because if for nothing else, it's just going to end up costing you more money, and you're
Exactly. And
paying for them to have the braces on. So,
exactly. And I will say the other thing too is I see a lot of people send their kids off to brush their teeth. This has nothing to do with the water pick or anything, but just since we're talking about it real quick, at what age do you let your kids brush on their own? I
that's a
think it
good point.
depends on, my daughter started brushing independently. What we did was, all right, once a day. Like I know it's about a control thing and instilling confidence. Can you do this or not? Once a day in the morning, since typically you're running off to school and stuff, you will be responsible for brushing. Mom or dad will check your teeth. If it's not good enough, you get sent back upstairs before you can eat. Um, and that is explained, of course, with love ahead of time. They
Hmm.
understand all of that good stuff. Um, and we're never withholding food as punishment, just to be clear. But as far as what age can you really trust them, I will tell you, my son is 8.5. I still brush his teeth at night.
Okay.
It's 2 minutes out of your day.
I know.
You can do it.
And it's
You
like
know?
people are like it's not gross. I mean it's your kid. I mean it's
Yeah, it's
you
your kid. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
you have that's just something you need to do. And obviously you
Right.
being a dentist, I mean you're more prone to like looking for things, but
Right.
I mean just do it for him. It's
Right.
necessary.
Right.
And
Right.
again like
And it's not because they are trying to do a bad job. It's A, they're not mature enough to understand the implications.
mhm,
B, they don't have the motor, like the manual dexterity
mhm,
to physically be able to do this well.
mhm.
And especially if you are allowing Gatorade, sodas,
Oh yeah.
processed foods,
Please, yeah. Yeah.
please go in and take the time to do it for them at least once a day. It's going to cause you less pain in your wallet. And,
Mhm.
as a parent seeing your child suffer, it's